This is the Untold Italy travel podcast, and you're listening to episode number 225.
Ciao a tutti and benvenuti to Untold Italy, the travel podcast where you go to the towns and villages, mountains and lakes, hills and coastlines of Bella Italia. Each week, your host, Katy Clarke, takes you on a journey in search of magical landscapes, history, culture, wine, gelato, and of course, a whole lot of pasta. If you're dreaming of Italy and planning future adventures there, you've come to the right place.
Ciao, friends. I hope you're well and you're looking forward to your Italy trips. My next one is in less than 2 weeks. Yikes, that came around quickly. And I do feel like I'm scrambling a bit and have yet to do quite a few things. Sometimes I can get a bit complacent on my travels, but I should know better, especially traveling to Italy in June. So the rest of today is about getting myself sorted and organized so I don't run into any of the mistakes that we're going to talk about today. But first, I'm going to share a replay of a live event that I did on Facebook earlier this week, sharing some Italy trip planning mistakes my team and I are noticing our community is making when they are pulling together their itineraries. Don't worry, all of these mistakes are fixable either on your own or with help from our trip planning experts. And a lot of it does come down to expectation setting and adjusting a few days or even a few hours on your itinerary to make sure you're making the most of your time in Italy. And that's because you've worked very hard for this vacation and you want it to be as beautiful as you imagined. Just make sure you don't leave booking your tickets until the last minute because I'm afraid that's where things are not going so well for lots of people. Anyway, there's more on that later and ways to fix it. So let's dive in with the replay. Ciao, buongiorno everyone. It's Katy here. I am the founder of Untold Italy and I'm really excited to be here this morning in Melbourne, Australia. It's very wintry here to share with you some tips on, making your Italy trip planning a little bit easier. I'm actually heading off to Italy in 2 weeks exactly, and I'm very excited. It'll be my second trip there this year, and I'm going for a wedding actually, so that's the main job, but I'm also going to be catching up with our team and doing some fun stuff, catching up with partners as well. So it's really exciting always to go to Italy. And what I thought I would do today is we noticed my team, my wonderful team of Italy trip planners, many of them who are moderators in our Facebook group, Italy Travel Planning. We've noticed that people are making a few little errors when they're booking their trips, and it's making things maybe a little bit harder for them. So let's try and demystify some of that stuff and get some tips into you. So hopefully you can streamline your Italy trip planning because you know what, I get it. There's so much information out there. It's absolutely incredible how much information that's out there online at the moment. And, who do you trust? Who do you know that's going to give you the right information? And, it could be out of date, and it's Italy. Things don't move that fast, but some things do. So we want to make sure you've got all the correct information and the best expert tips so you can plan your trip really, really well and not be disappointed when you get there. So got a few things that I wanted to share with you today. And then if we've got time, we'll have some questions as well. Okay, so first of all, what I wanted to say was, as I mentioned, our team have noticed that, there's been a few mistakes being made and we just really wanted to help you. So there's 5 to 6 general areas that we're going to focus on today. But I wanted to let you know if it's all getting too much and the planning of the trip is outweighing the excitement of going to Italy, you can always book in with a trip consultation with our team who will get you organised in no time. It's a very efficient process of doing that. So if you're kind of sick of going through forums and websites and everything, you can quickly get some help and get on with relaxing and dreaming of Italy. So I wanted to start now with just explaining the reality of travel in Italy in 2024. Now, I've been going for 25 years, over 25 years. And basically, things have changed quite a bit, and even they've changed a lot since COVID. So it's good to know, if you were like me and you started your traveling in the 90s and were kind of used to everything being free and easy. Well, unfortunately, things have changed a little bit and we can't be as free and easy as what we want to be, especially if we're going to the major tourist areas. So Italy is the 5th most visited country in the world. And it's super popular for good reason. All the reasons we love: history, culture, landscapes, food, the full package. It's got everything, Italy, hasn't it? It's got everything that we want to experience when we go on holiday. So the reality of travel in Italy is something that we really need to take into account. And what I wanted to tell you was over 50 million people visited Italy last year. That's a lot of people. And around 35 million people will go to Rome, which, if you haven't been there before, it's a relatively small city of 2.75 million people. So it's a lot of people squashing into a small city. And, Florence is even smaller than that. Just to put it into more perspective, 12 million people visited the Colosseum in 2023. So that was up 24% on 2022. And that's over 30,000 people per day navigating a really ancient site. And another one that people may be a little bit surprised about is Positano, which has a population of less than 4,000 people. And there's one road in and out. And 5 million visitors a year go to the Amalfi Coast. So, it's hardly surprising that there's queues and waiting times and a little bit of frustration around that. So Italy is busy, folks, and if you're not ready for it, you might be disappointed or frustrated. It can be hard in the peak seasons to get taxis, restaurant reservations, and these days, Colosseum tickets if you're not prepared. Hotels are booked well in advance and accommodation prices are really high. Even I understand how busy it is, and I've been many times in the last few years, and I get really frustrated standing in taxi lines for an hour and forgetting to book my favourite restaurants. So I want you to make sure that you are really well prepared and you're getting on with things and making sure you are organised. What I wanted to say is that you cannot wing it or figure it out when you get there. You can, but it might be a little bit stressful. But if your heart is set on doing and experiencing the most popular things like the Colosseum and the Vatican museums, in particular in Rome, and the Uffizi Gallery in Florence, and all of those things, you really need to be organised. Of course, there are plenty of lesser known and absolutely amazing places to go in all of those cities, but perhaps they're not on Instagram or the top searches of Google, but they are on Untold Italy. So you can have a search around for hidden gems in those cities and you'll find a great list of things to do on our website. One really great example is, and I had a client reach out to me over the weekend who said, we're going to go to the Colosseum tomorrow and we're just going to go there and see if we can book a tour. And I've got to say, my face went like this. Oh no. So I do give him the suggestion that if it wasn't possible to get a tickets or a tour, because I'm not seeing a lot of availability right now, that he could go to the bars of Caracalla, which are amazing former public bars, and you go there and you can get a virtual reality headset and walk around, and the headset shows you in really amazing detail what the bars were like. And I think, one of the things that really surprised me about ancient Rome is you kind of think everything was muted and sort of like maybe those sort of muted tones and rustic tones, but actually everything was very colourful. So what you see on the virtual reality headset is everything in full Technicolor, and it's amazing. The other thing I would say is spread out into outside of the historic centre, but not too far, spread out into the Monti and the Prati districts where you can get better value for your accommodation and still walk everywhere. Because, some of these neighbourhoods like Trastevere is so busy. Like it's you're kind of having to go, excuse me, it's like Disneyland on a summer weekend. It's very, very packed. So if that's not the experience that you were hoping for, do try, booking places outside of those main areas. Another reality that our consultant, Kristen, pointed out was that, everyone's kind of a little bit fixated on not going to a tourist trap or restaurants that are extremely popular. But the reality is that, not every restaurant that's popular with tourists is a tourist trap, including one of my favorites, Roscioli. It's very popular with tourists. The reality is that most Romans would avoid the centre, like in any big tourist city. I used to live in London, and we did not go anywhere near the tourist areas just because it's too busy and, we had things to do. So we go into places more in our local neighbourhood. So, if you're going to be eating in the centre, and it's highly recommended, you'll likely be mostly dining with other visitors unless you head out into the other neighbourhoods. There are some of the realities of traveling in Italy at the moment. And, one of the things that you're going to hear me say again and again is you don't have to have every minute planned, but we do suggest that you book your must-dos in advance and go for the very early or late sessions and have some options up your sleeves if, you don't feel like doing something or or it's raining or it's too hot. I mean, one of my favourite places that I like to go to in those situations is the Capitoline museums, which are amazing. Like, you can see these gigantic marble statues and you can just wander in and out of there. It's really cool in summer and it's warm in winter, and it's obviously in the shade. So look, Capitoline museums are a great place to go if you're looking for something a little bit different, and they're not usually ever very crowded. So brilliant idea to get things going. The next one I wanted to talk to you about was not relying on Google Maps and algorithm-driven apps to fully plan your trip. Some people are doing it with no map at all. That seems to be a little bit of an interesting prospect to me. But let's make sure that we've got everything sorted out in terms of understanding the geography of places, because it's not really what you think. And I don't know about you, but I'm not the best at these terrain-driven maps, but they're the ones that you really need to understand, because what we're seeing is a lot of people, maybe not understanding the terrain of places. And an example of that is Positano, which is a place that is built on a cliff, basically. So, and there was a very interesting TikTok that came out last year of a young lady who was quite emotional because she had to carry her luggage up all these steps and was not prepared for it. And, it was very hot and there's not really another option. Positano is not really great for anyone who has mobility issues or anyone who is traveling with small children, or, if I'm honest, anyone who's traveling on a budget. So you really need to understand what you're getting into. Just because it looks incredible, and I agree, Positano is an incredible place, there are a lot of realities of that. I mentioned before, there's only 4,000 people that live there. Can you imagine thousands upon thousands of people trying to get into that place every day? It's a difficult situation. And I did have a client that said it took them 2 hours to get down to the port from Naples the other day. And, I felt for him. But the thing is, this is why we try and get people to spread out along the coast. Another really great example is Capri, where you need the funicular or the bus to get up from the Marina Grande up to the main town, and it just gets so crowded in summer. So have a few different options up your sleeve. If you're thinking it's going to be too crowded for you, there's some other options. And one of my favourite ones is Ischia, such a beautiful place, and you can go and try out the hot springs there and the castle. I mean, it's beautiful. So getting back to the maps. This is quite interesting. About a year ago in Venice, I noticed something, and that was that people had popped their destination into Google Maps and they were following along, and everyone had their head in their phone. And it was so funny because I realized that Google was putting everyone, like it does with cars, or had put all the foot traffic in the same direction. So everyone was kind of squished into these little streets and, being pushed along like a sausage. And, they were going to get to where they needed to go for sure. But if they had have just gone a little step to the right, they could have had a more enjoyable stroll and been able to check out some shops and look in the windows and things like that. So Google is our friend, but it's kind of not. Like, I think we need to also use a little bit of, not common sense, but just to realize that Google's pushing everyone down the same path. And that's not just for maps, actually, that's for a lot of things. So Google is my friend for my business, but I have to say it's not. We need to be always saying, why is it telling us this? And is this because, this is the easiest way or the most common way? And then maybe take a little bit of a critical thinking about that. The other thing about Google and, another provider like Rome to Rio is they don't always have the best instructions. And that especially in Italy. So I've actually just come back from a vacation in the United States, and Google works really fantastically there. But in Italy, there's a very interesting quirk, and that is that the local transport providers do not publish their timetables online very often, or if they do, it's kind of after the fact. So they don't have the latest information because if no one's feeding data, Google and Rome to Rio can't use it. So this is really classic when you go to the Amalfi Coast because there are a few different ways to get there. And while there's a road, what Google doesn't tell you is that it's jam-packed all day and there's very limited parking in the towns when you get there. And, there's a high chance that the local authorities could put up a last-minute restriction on visitor traffic like they did last year. So, seriously, I wouldn't recommend driving in the Amalfi Coast if you're going there between probably April and the end of October, because it's going to be a bit of a nightmare. And in fact, we have actually driven when we were there, but it was in April and it was still really busy and we had an accident, and luckily my husband speaks a local dialect and we managed to sort it out pretty quickly. But you don't want to be dealing with that when you're on vacation. It's just not fun. So just beware of Google and Rome to Rio and ask around. We've got some really good instructions on our website about how to get from point A to point B, like how to get from Naples to Positano, how to get from Naples to Sorrento, how to get from different points. So you can research that on our website. But, all of this is better than not getting a map out at all. I think that everyone should get the map out. Please, please, please get the map out and look where you're going, because things will take a little bit longer than what you think. And we really want to make sure that we understand getting from point A to point B. I think we can really easily avoid some of these mistakes. It's not that difficult. You've got this, okay? And I've got another one for you. And this is a little bit related to what I was saying before, but it's not preparing for crowds and hot weather in summer. The crowds are going to be big. And I mentioned before, 50 million people in Italy in 1 year, which is huge. And it's more than 2019, actually. So it's bigger. And in fact, some nationalities are still not traveling en masse. So there used to be a lot of Chinese travelers. They're not there really at the moment. And also a lot of Russian travelers, and they're not there. So can you imagine if other people started traveling, it's going to get really busy. Also, in summer, it's hot. It's super hot. So crowds, hot. If you don't like that, I'm one of those people, then you really want to have a good, solid plan about how to deal with it. So in Florence, for example, it's a really small city that has around 16 million visitors a year. And you know what? I've been to Florence 5 or 6 times over the past 2 years, and it's so busy. It's really hard to get around in the city centre. So it is crushingly busy. So please have a plan. And the Amalfi Coast, Capri, Sorrento, Cinque Terre are all extremely busy, as well as popular small towns in Tuscany like Siena and San Gimignano. And so there's not a lot you can do about this, but you should have a good strategy in place. And what I would say is to avoid the middle of the day from around 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. for those places, because people tend to do day trips there. So Tuscany, Capri, Positano, Cinque Terre. If you can, stay there and then go and do day trips out to other places, smaller places around there, or sit by the pool or enjoy going to the beach. But to really enjoy those places, you're better off being there at dusk or for dinner time and enjoying the sunset and all of that when the day trippers have gone for the day, because that's when it really comes to life. Now, those places are popular for a reason and they're absolutely stunning, every single one of them. But yeah, you need to have a plan for it. Otherwise, it's going to be, an hour-long queue for your gelato. That's no fun. I don't want that for you. So Yeah, make a plan. And in the cities, you can go to the main attractions and sites early in the morning or later in the afternoon. And that also means that you avoid this heat of the day. And it's really important because Italian heat is super hot. The stone buildings retain all of the hotness, and it's also pretty humid. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of good air conditioning. And we had a situation in Tuscany where our hotel was wedging the air conditioning onto 25 degrees Celsius, which is, I think it's about 70 in Fahrenheit. That's heating as far as I'm concerned. So we were like, we just turned it off because it was much more pleasant having the windows open. So please know that air conditioning is not as strong, and it may not even be used as commonly as you would expect at home. So that's because the energy prices are really, really expensive in Italy at the moment, and a lot of people are trying to save money that way, but they've also got a strong culture of not turning those type of things on unless they absolutely have to. So yeah, it's not as common as what we have in our countries. So book places with a pool if you can in summer, and there's some places in Florence. There's a few more places in Florence with pools actually than in Rome. Rome tends to be very 5-star things, but you can go to the beach very easily from Rome actually. So you can catch the train out to the beach if you're getting way too hot. And take it easy, sit in a shady piazza, rest your legs and hydrate. And if you bring a water bottle, there are lots of places to fill it up with fresh drinking water for free, especially in Rome. And I've got some great photos of my kids drinking out of ancient fountains, and they got a real big thrill out of that. And we really needed to, because we were in there in June 2 years ago and it was super, super hot. And I've got some funny photos of them, just kind of complaining in the line for the Vatican to get into St. Peter's. It's just like, Mom, I don't want to do this, but it's a reality. So you just need to be prepared for it. And you got this. You've all got this. So that's our third tip. The next one that I wanted to share with you, and this might seem a little bit obvious, but we're seeing a few people that haven't actually managed to do this and getting a little bit disappointed, and that is not checking cancellation policies and failure to purchase travel insurance. So cancellation policies for your hotels and your tours and activities, just make sure you check them. Look, I really get what happens. It's frantic. People going, oh my goodness, we found a hotel or a tour that looks amazing. You've been, searching for hours. You're numb. You're like, I found it. I finally found it. And you book it and you don't check the cancellation policies. It's really critical to do this. It's so important because, things change. You might want to change your itinerary up a little bit by a few days. And if you don't have that in order, unfortunately can be very tricky. And for that reason, I tend to use booking.com when I'm booking on accommodation, because you can easily see what the cancellation policy is and you can adjust for that. So you might pay a few more euros per night. For me, the peace of mind is worth it. You don't know what's going to happen. And we've had to cancel a few things over the years, and it's been super easy. You just go on the app and cancel. The same goes for tours and tickets. Unfortunately, the main ticketing sites are not very good with refunds or the direct train companies. Italian businesses can be frustrating. They do not have the level of e-commerce maturity that we have in our countries. And so people have come in and are able to offer a service that we're probably more used to in terms of booking online. So sometimes when you book direct, it can be a little bit of a problem because they're not offering the best cancellation. Okay. And it's very difficult to get your money back. In fact, one of our moderators, so she's just amazing. She doggedly, she literally spent hours and hours online trying to get a refund for her train tickets that she booked, before COVID, and she managed to get them. But the effort it required was superhuman, and I don't know that I have the patience for that. So you can use online booking agencies, and you pay a little bit more, but then you get that peace of mind. The other thing is travel insurance. People may be a little bit wary of that, but it's for health reasons, and it's as simple as tripping on a cobblestone. And we had someone in our group recently who did exactly that and had to rearrange everything. So if you have cancelable bookings and things that you can change quite easily, then that becomes less of an issue and less of a problem. If you also have trip insurance, then if your trip is ruined by that trip on the cobblestones, then you will have money to come back to Italy, which is always a good idea. Checking all of those things is so, so important. And making sure you don't have to, for me, I don't ever get trip insurance for, like lost luggage or anything like that. That's a kind of a bonus. For me, it's more if there's a problem health-wise, you needed to be flown home. So, hopefully you don't need that, but it's always a good idea to have that in place. So, next one that I wanted to chat about is I think everyone's now looking for all those wow moments, and it's really hard. You want every day to be absolutely amazing, don't we? We want to have all those highs. We want the best gelato. We want the best photos. We want everything. And I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to actually make that happen. And it's not just us. It's actually we're being conditioned that way by things like Facebook. Thank you, Facebook, for hosting this chat. But we and all of the social media that we have, and it's really, I think it's a bit unfair, and especially for us that are planning these trips. And I know it's mostly women that are planning, and you're doing everything else. So please, we don't want to put even more pressure on ourselves to set the expectation with our families and our friends that this is a trip that's going to be full of nonstop wow moments. Because if you can imagine, if every single moment of your trip was a huge high, then you won't remember the truly special moments. Like everything has to be like life. Life's not full of happiness every day. It's full of ups and downs. And I don't want any, major things to go wrong in your trip. But let's try to pace things out a bit so that you have quiet moments to reflect on what you've experienced. And then you can truly recognize what a wow moment is. Because if everything is up at this level, when you down in the line at the St. Peter's security line, which there's no way of getting around that, it's going to be a big crash. So it's a really good idea to have these days that are, full of little undulating moments of, beauty and quietness, as well as those incredible wow moments. I wanted to share with you an insider secret because if you don't know, we also run a small group tour company, Untold Italy Tours. And these were some of the best advice that we had from coaches that we had when we were designing our tours. And then that was to build layers of experience and high moments and more quieter times because we really want people to remember something that was really outstanding or special. So when we're doing our tours, yes, there are some massive highs, but there are also moments of quiet contemplation. We really want people to, sit and soak it all in. So, a lot of people say slow down, and everyone's got a pace that they're comfortable traveling with. But I think if we look at it maybe this way, that if you have so many highs and so many moments that you're not paying attention to something that is truly, truly special to you. And you'll be looking for that dopamine hit of like, oh my God, that was amazing every minute. And you're not going to get it. You're going to be disappointed. So let's, have a mix of things, have one or two activities a day that you're really excited about, but then the rest have it as, hey, we're just going to go for a wander and check out what's around the corner and soak it all up. And that's the best kind of advice I could give anyone after many years of travel in Italy, because it's really those kind of moments that you least expect that are going to give you the wow anyway. You all deserve that. Everyone deserves it. You've saved up so much. These trips are not cheap, and you want to make sure that you're going to enjoy your trip and have those memories to come home with. That for me is it's probably one of the most important tips that I can give you. It's just, soak it all up, enjoy, and make sure that you have built in some reflective moments. when we're helping clients plan their trips, we're always really encouraging them to do that. And we can help with that too. Like, we know some really gorgeous cafes in piazzas that you might not know of there. You can go and enjoy. I had a really nice aperitivo lunch. It was kind of like lunch. It was kind of aperitivo with my parents in the piazza out in Trastevere, actually, just for lunch. And it wasn't so busy, actually, but we just had a really nice moment with a spritz and a taglieri, which is a plate of meat and cheese. And it was just really lovely because, I think we'd just been to the Vatican museums and we were tired and we just wanted to have a little wander. And it was just, I think that was one of the nicest moments of my trip last year, that I spent some time with my parents just hanging out in the piazza there. All right. So I just wanted to end with one big tip that's kind of like a bonus tip, because this one's coming up a lot, and I'm so sad for people because I know a lot of people are missing out on some things that they've been really, really excited about. So that's thinking that you have the best chance of getting tickets for attractions on the official ticketing sites. And here's some reality check about Italy, which is a place that I love, but it's also full of many, many, many frustrations. I cannot stress this enough. The ticketing is a mess, everyone. It is an absolute mess. I have been doing this for a while, and I've got to say I have never seen anything quite as disastrous as what the ticketing is, especially for the Colosseum, the Vatican museums, and the Last Supper in Milan. And, look, I wish it was different, but it is what it is. And so, rolling back to what I said at the start of this session, the number of people visiting the Colosseum each year has risen 60% on 2019 visitors. To top it all off, they changed how they were doing their ticketing this year and tried to bring it in-house, which I think is quite funny because I don't really feel like archaeologists are really well versed in e-commerce. So these sites have very complicated business relationships with many other companies to sell tickets, and it's their decision to sell tickets this way. Okay, so if you are buying tickets through Get Your Guide or Viator, it is official. Like, they have to go through all these checks and balances. There's no getting around it, basically. So your best chance of getting scammed is out the front of the Colosseum, for sure. But you will pay more on those third-party online sellers for these tickets. Yes, you will. You will definitely pay. And also because what the Colosseum did this year was force them to bundle in other tours or activities. So, for example, you can get a bus tour around Rome that includes a Colosseum ticket. And so, it will be more expensive. So that's a given. But buying through these third-party online sellers is absolutely fine. The thing to do is you need to make sure to check the reviews and look for the companies supplying the tour, which those tickets, Get Your Guide, Viator, they must provide that information by law. With Get Your Guide, it's at the top of the listing for each listing. Viator hides them more. I think it's under more information, but you can find out who is the provider. And so Get Your Guide is not a tour company, and neither is Viator. But they do offer services where you can get online tickets, and they are, as far as I'm concerned, it's easier. And personally, I'm happy to pay a few euros for that convenience because I'm not happy to get up at, 1 a.m. in the morning to try and get tickets, which are very limited. So as I mentioned, they're not offering the full suite of tickets directly that's available. They've made arrangements with all these other companies to sell them tickets. So you need to decide whether it's worth your time to get up and take your chance 30 days out from your trip to get the tickets, or if you want to buy them online through a provider and try and get some additional value from that experience as well. But I would say if you're going to any of these places, if this is your dream, don't just get a ticket because it's terrible. You can't see anything. There's not very many boards of explaining what's going on. And the minimum, get an audio guide and make sure you've got that with you, because you really want to make sure unless you're the type of person that just wants a photo, that's a different thing. But for me, I like to understand what I'm looking at and what I'm seeing. And if I'm investing 3 hours in it, I definitely want to know all that stuff. Getting a tour is a worth investment. And I think, like I mentioned, my family has just come back from Disneyland, and we paid so much more to go to Disneyland than which was super fun, by the way, than you would to get a Colosseum tour, and I look back and I think, well, if this is the one chance that you have to see the Colosseum and enjoy and understand the history and all of the amazing insights that you get from this 2,000-year-old site, well, for me, it's worth the investment. And there's different levels of tour. Like I said, you can get an audio guide or you can get a private tour, and that's the spectrum of choice that you've got. And if you followed us for a while, you'll know that Live Tours and Walks of Italy are companies that we trust and recommend. And, they're great. They've amazing guides. They're really energetic and they know how to get you around. I just can't just sing their praises enough. We really have great local relationships and local guides that they work with, and they have a way of explaining the information and getting across all the fun stuff about each of those sites in just such a fun way that makes you more engaged. Don't be afraid to visit the other cities. This is why we're called Untold Italy, because we want to get you out of these major cities. Even if you're going for a little, like for your first trip, add in something a little bit special. Go to Torino, go to Turin, go to Verona, go to Lucca, go somewhere really beautiful and different that everyone's not going to. And I can almost guarantee that will be the highlight of your trip. So I hope you got something out of these tips. It's something that our team has noticed. Everyone is really trying so hard to build these trips of their dreams, and it really is, it's hard. We've been doing this for so long, some of us for decades. And so it's not something that you should expect to sort of master in a week. And if you've never been to Europe or you've never traveled abroad, don't beat yourself up. This is hard work. And it takes a lot of experience and making mistakes to find out about all this stuff. We didn't know this automatically. As always, there is a lot of information on our website and a podcast, and you can use the search function. It's pretty good, actually. I'm quite proud of the search function to help you find information about, things like getting from Naples to the Amalfi Coast, how to buy Colosseum tickets, and all of those things. So it's all there. And the thing is that I'm very proud of and proud of our team is that we are absolutely committed to making sure it's up to date. So if you're looking at things online, check the dates on the posts, make sure it's fairly recent. With YouTube, I know a lot of people like to use YouTube. I am not good at making videos at this point. I'm going to try and get better, but just because someone makes a nice video doesn't mean they're an expert. And I'm just going to leave that there because there are some people. And if you're happy to follow someone's advice that's been to Italy once, then that's great. But just know that that's what you're doing. There's people on our team that live in Italy. We have people around the world that have traveled there many, many times. I feel like you need considerable experience to be handing out advice. And, people are free to take anyone's advice that they want to. But at the end of the day, I'll give you another analogy. I'm building a house at the moment, and I'm probably only going to do this once or twice in my life. So I know nothing. I don't know anything. And so I'm very happy to engage some experts to help me. Anyway, if you're still overwhelmed, and frankly, I can understand why, you might like to work with one of our trip planning consultants who do have a lot of experience planning trips in Italy. And apart from getting access to those special secrets that we keep for clients, friends and family, this is the most efficient way to get your trip planning done. After all, we're planning trips week in and week out, and you might do it only once a year or, once in a lifetime. That's all I had planned, but if anyone has any questions, I'm going to open it up for a few questions so that you have the opportunity to answer. I'm actually going on local radio here in Melbourne tomorrow, and it's going to be a good practice for that because it's open mic. It's chat, call in. Okay, Fleur said, I know you recommend booking a tour for the Vatican and Colosseum, but if you're booking guided tour direct with the official site, do you know if the Vatican one includes being taken inside at St. Peter's, or do you need to line up again? Also, with third-party tours, if they can't secure tickets that you've booked, then what's your suggestion? Okay, as far as I know, the door between the Vatican, the Sistine Chapel and St. Peter's is currently open. I have only done that with third-party tours recently. So I've done that with Walks of Italy and Live Tours, and it is open for them. I don't know about the Vatican. I would assume that they are. The difference between the Vatican tours and those two companies is that you are in a much bigger group, and also the style of the tour depends on the guide. So if you really like historical details and facts and religious observations, then the Vatican tour is great and you will have a great time. For me, I need a little bit more entertainment, so that's why I choose those other companies. They have a different style. It's more an entertainment style rather than getting information across. And, every single guide in Rome that does these tours must have a license. So they have all done the same training. It just comes down to the delivery, basically. So with third-party tours, so the two that I mentioned, tickets are included with the price of your tour. So sometimes if you book with an independent travel guide, they will ask you to book your tickets. But that's because they're very busy and they cannot be, trying to book tickets online plus take tours. So that's why they ask their guests to book tickets. So for me, there's a couple of reasons why I think if you don't have strong relationships in Italy that you might want to consider booking through a company, is because they've got a bank of guides. So if someone's sick or something happens, they, move people around, and they've got a good process of making sure the tour goes ahead. And they also organise all the tickets for you. So for both those companies I mentioned, they have a specific person that just works on tickets all day, every day. And they're making sure everyone's got the tickets. They also offer 24-hour cancellation. Yeah, I mean, there's some advantages for doing that. So if you book through the direct, it's hard to get a refund if you need to change. That's a great question, Fleur. Thank you. Did anyone else have a question? Oh, thanks, Mark. Mark said he absolutely loves our podcast and the show notes are the best. Yes, the show notes are amazing. My assistant, who also is called Katy Clarke, which is a little bit funny, she does them and she's so fastidious about them, and it's amazing. So I'm really proud of her and I'm really proud of the show notes. All right, now, so thank you once again, everyone, for joining online. I really appreciate you spending the time to listen, and I hope you got some value out of it. And yeah, just make sure you use the Facebook group. Make sure you delve into our site. We're here to help. Everyone's wanting you to have the most amazing trip that you can, but not too many highs. Space it out, as I said. Oh, I'm getting some more questions here. Okay. Fleur, wants to know where the goat's cheese farm was that you mentioned in the podcast. Oh, there's so many goat's cheese farms, Fleur. A lot of these ones are private, so you can't just turn up, unfortunately. There are some good ones in Tuscany. There's one called Podere il Casale, which is near Pienza, which is a good one that you can go to. So that's a good one, but it depends where you're going. I go on about goats a lot because I love baby goats. Amanda says, no question, but thank you for this. We leave in Italy in less than 3 weeks and would be lost without your podcast. Thank you, Amanda. We so appreciate you, and that's what we're here for. Karen said, thank you very much for the talk. Oh, thanks for joining us. And last but not least, Linda, thank you so much. She said this was very helpful and got me even more excited, if that's possible. Love the Facebook group. Well, I'm excited too. I'll be in Italy in a couple of weeks, and stay tuned on our Instagram and on our Facebook, and I'll send some updates, and, I'll let you know how busy it is. It's going to be pretty busy. Okay. So thanks everyone for joining. Ciao for now. So everyone, the takeaway here is to check in with your travel plans and make sure you've covered everything so you can relax and prepare for a smooth departure. By the way, I love hearing how your trips went after you've returned home. One of our consultants, Sarah, who also runs the La Cuccagna Agriturismo in Umbria, shared with me that one of her guests planned their whole trip with Untold Italy. And you know what? It's so heartwarming to know that people are having a great time exploring and enjoying their time in the country we love to travel to the most. Next time on Untold Italy, we're headed to the northern city of Turin. I've noticed a big increase in interest about this beautiful northern city lately, so we're doing a special episodes with some members of our team who have a delightful relationship with the city and who are about to embark on some life adventures of their own. But until then, it's ciao for now.
The Untold Italy podcast is an independent production. Podcast editing, audio production, and website development by Mark Hatter, production assistance and content writing by the other Katy Clarke. Yes, there are two of us. For more information about Untold Italy, please visit untolditaly.com.